Black and White and other work during the same decade. One of the most prominent historians has been Marika Sherwood, who began writing about this history in the mid-1980s and has been a prolific writer and researcher ever since. She has written on almost every aspect of this history from the Tudor period onwards and has publications too numerous to mention. Just as importantly, she has been a champion for this history over many years, one of the founders of the Black and Asian Studies Association in 1991, and for many years the editor of its newsletter. For over 35 years, she has been a tireless campaigner for changes to the national history curriculum in schools, as well as for changes in the preservation and to the presentation of historical sources in museums and archives. She has probably done more than anyone to encourage the study and teaching of this history, as well as being a mentor to many, and has been largely unacknowledged for her efforts. As a result of the work of Marika Sherwood, as well as many others, in recent years, this history has become much more visible. In 2017, the broadcaster David Olusoga presented his acclaimed primetime television series Black and British, followed by a book of the same title. Olusoga is part of a long line of researchers of African and Caribbean heritage who have addressed the fact that standard presentations of Britain's history have often neglected or excluded those of African and Caribbean heritage. One of the earliest scholars was a self-educated Jamaican, J.A. Rogers, who lived and worked in the United States. His research and publications were designed to combat Eurocentric and racist views of history. In several of his works, he writes about the history of African and Caribbean people in Britain, although his focus is often on prominent individuals. A meticulous researcher, his best-known works include World's Great Men of Colour and Nature Knows No Colour Line, which were first published over 70 years ago. Another important scholar was Edward Scobie, 1918 to 1996, a Dominican writer and publisher who produced one of the first surveys of the subject in Black Britannia, A History of Blacks in Britain, first published in 1972. During the 1970s, two pioneering books were published by the Nigerian historian Folarin Shylon, Black People in Britain, 1555 to 1833, and Black Slaves in Britain. Ron Ramdin, a Trinidadian historian based in Britain, published another important survey, The Making of the Black Working Class in Britain, which first appeared in 1987. More recently, there have been significant contributions from the African-American historian Gretchen Gerzina, most notably her book, Black England, Life Before Emancipation, and the radio series, Britain's Black Past. The historian working on the subject today therefore benefits from the work of numerous predecessors, and I have endeavoured to draw on the work of as many researchers as possible. However, although there has been important new work, the focus of many historians remains firmly on the 20th century. There is still a lack of research on the period before 1500 and on the 17th and 19th centuries, as well as the period after 1985. In short, there is still much research that remains to be done to strengthen our knowledge of this history. The modern historian is also able to make use of the many historical sources and records that are now online, a particularly important resource in the midst of a pandemic. These include, for example, the University of Glasgow's database Runaway Slave in Britain, Bondage, Freedom and Race in the 18th Century, as well as some of the digitised material held at the Black Cultural Archives and the National Archives in London. In 2003, the chief executive of the National Archives admitted it has recently been acknowledged the archives contain rich sources of African and Asian heritage, and then added, once it has been determined what there actually is, the best way to promote it must be determined. However, in the years since, progress has been painfully slow.